Hey everyone, and welcome. Let's jump right into today's explainer, a fascinating journey of discovery, or as we say in Arabic, Arihlat Istikshafiya. Today, we are exploring an ancient, totally authentic story that is just perfect for our younger learners, teenagers, and educators. Honestly, it sounds like the plot of a fantasy movie, but it actually holds some of the deepest spiritual truths you could ever learn. It's a story all about ultimate power, a seriously desperate escape plan, and then this boundless, completely unexpected mercy. Let's get into it.
So, let's kick things off with a massive question. Can anyone actually hide from the Creator? I mean, really, truly imagine it for a second. Let's say you've made a ton of mistakes in your life, and you know, without a doubt, you're going to have to face the consequences. What if you tried to run? Where would you even go? How do you hide from the very being who literally built the universe? Well, that exact mystery is the setup for our incredible story today.
Chapter 1. A Fascinating Story.
Now, this tale is pulled straight from the prophetic biography, which is an authentic historical record. It's about a man from ancient times who had spent his entire life committing a whole lot of sins. He had crossed the line over and over and over again. And, well, as he grew older, this terrifying realization just washed over him. He became absolutely paralyzed by the thought of his final judgment. He knew he had done wrong, and the panic really began to set in.
As this time drew near, he brought his sons together and gave them what has to be the most dramatic final instruction you could ever think of. He told them, "If I die, burn me and scatter me in the wind." He actually ordered his own kids to wait for a day with violent, howling winds, completely destroy his remains, and just throw them into the air. It was a wildly desperate, extreme plan to escape his fate.
You've got to understand his logic here. Obviously, it's completely flawed, but in his utter panic, the guy honestly believed that by turning into tiny particles of ash, he'd be impossible to rebuild. He figured, hey, if I don't have a body anymore, I can't be brought back to life, and if I can't be brought back to life, I can't be punished. He really thought he had found the ultimate loophole to escape God's judgment.
And this just perfectly captures the sheer terror the man was feeling. He told his sons, "By God, if my Lord gets hold of me, he will punish me like no one else." He wasn't acting arrogant at all. He was crushed by guilt. He fully recognized the majesty of God and just how severe his own mistakes were. It was this overwhelming awe that drove him to make such an unbelievable request.
And wild enough, his sons actually followed through, step by step. When he passed away, they burned him, they crushed whatever was left into fine dust, and on a fiercely windy day, they scattered him. Picture that for a second. His ashes blowing away, scattering across the land and the ocean, just vanishing into absolute nothingness. To human eyes, he was gone forever.
But here comes the awe-inspiring twist. God didn't even need to search for him. God simply gave an order. He commanded the earth to gather his scattered parts. And instantly, literally in the blink of an eye, all those microscopic ashes reassembled. The man was completely whole again, resurrected, and standing right there before his Creator. His grand escape plan was entirely undone by a single command. Then we get this incredible divine confrontation. God asks him straight up, "What made you do this? Like, why did you come up with this crazy plan?" And the man, standing there completely exposed, just tells the absolute truth. He replies, "Fear of you, O Lord." He immediately confesses that his strange plan wasn't defiance at all. It was born entirely out of an overwhelming fear and total awe of God's majesty.
Let's look a little closer. Chapter 2. What do the words mean?
For our younger viewers, let's break down some of the classic Arabic used in this tale. First, we have the word tharuni. This means to scatter and separate ashes into the wind. It's a really specific action, and it perfectly illustrates the man's deep, desperate desire to be completely erased from existence.
Next is the phrase hadarahu al-maut, which translates to when the signs of death approached him. This is important because it clarifies that the man wasn't scheming this his entire life. His realization, his immense panic, and his absolute fear kicked in right at those final, heavy moments when he knew his time was officially up.
All right, Chapter 3, Values and Morals.
Think about this comparison for a minute. On one hand, you have the man's incredibly elaborate, desperate attempt to hide using fire, crushing weight, and the chaotic power of the wind. And on the other hand, you have the effortless power of God. The man thought the wind would hide him, but God is the very one who controls the wind and the earth.
Which brings us to some massive spiritual takeaways. Let's break them down. First off, no one can escape God, period. Second,
Everything in the universe, the wind, the dirt, the elements, they are all soldiers of God, just following his command. And third, God has the absolute capability to resurrect every single soul, no matter what happens to their physical form. It's a huge reminder of his absolute magnitude.
But guys, here is the most beautiful twist of the entire story. After everything, after his sins, after his foolish attempt to run away, God actually forgave him. No way, right? But why? It was because of his immense awe and fear of God's majesty. His genuine, overwhelming reverence proved his belief. He wasn't mocking God, he was just terrified. And that profound respect brought about God's vast, boundless mercy.
So, let's talk application. Chapter 4, how do we apply the lesson?
For all the parents and educators tuning in, here are some really practical steps to use this with kids and teens. Number 1, gather your students or children to discuss God's incredible power. Make it a real conversation. Number 2, recall stories of past nations to show historical examples. And number 3, use these stories to actively reflect on and build up your own faith. This educational follow-up is a total game changer if you make a habit out of it. When you're doing your daily readings, like going through Quranic verses together, don't just speed read through. Actually pause at the verses that mention God's power. Point out his specific attributes, his mercy, his ability to see everything, and deeply reflect on how that impacts the way we live our lives every single day. Let that shape your reverence.
And finally, Chapter 5, a big question. So I'm going to leave you with a massive double question to chew on today. Why couldn't the man escape, and what does God's ultimate forgiveness teach us right now in our own lives? I want you to deeply internalize this incredible balance. We absolutely must have awe and respect for God's boundless power, but at the exact same time, we must never, ever lose hope in his infinite mercy. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer today, and keep asking those big questions.